welcome to today's workshop on interview preparation for graduate applications, both master's and PhD. Very quickly, I will introduce you to Project Edu Access and to Oxford Pakistan program and to your panelists for the day, who will then take you over just what are the types of interviews that you might have to sit through, how technical do they get, how do you prepare, what are some of the common questions, what are some strategies for preparation, and then some general tips, and then we move to the Q&A. So we at Project Edu Access, we believe that access to higher education, leadership, and professional opportunities is a privilege that most people from marginalized communities are systematically denied through cost, information, and dispositional barriers. And we try to improve inclusivity in some of these spaces by removing these barriers for marginalized communities in the global south. We do this by adopting 4 key interventions, such as mentoring, counseling, role modeling, information, advice, and guidance, capacity building, leadership, skill development, and evidence-based advocacy. We are also Oxford Pakistan program. As I said, we're running this workshop series together as Project Edu Access and Oxford Pakistan program. So Oxford Pakistan program is the first initiative of its kind that is creating new opportunities for Pakistani scholars and supporting Pakistan-related activities at the University of Oxford. OPB supports Pakistani scholars with strong academic merit and a commitment to contribute to Pakistan's development through impactful research and public engagement in their academic endeavors, thereby increasing the representation of Pakistani and British Pakistani students at the University of Oxford. With that, I will introduce you to what has been a workshop series on graduate applications. Today is the final session, but we've done 9 other sessions that range from introducing you to university and scholarship applications, discussing master's, PhD applications, discussing funding and scholarship opportunities for international students and also specifically students from Pakistan. Just going over some standardized tests such as GRE, GMAT, TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo that some universities allow you to take. We went over writing personal statements or statement of purpose for university and scholarship applications, drafting your CV for graduate applications, writing research proposals, which is something that some masters, MPhil, and PhD programs require you to submit as part of your application. And then academic writing for graduate applications or writing samples and essays, again, a component that a lot of the universities require you to submit along with your SOP, your CV, and your LOR. That is an evidence for your ability to do research and participate more holistically. These are sessions we've already conducted as part of the workshop series, and you will find them already on our YouTube channel. I'll send a link to that, but it's YouTube/Project Edu Access. And then today's session is our final session on interview preparation for graduate applications. So some master's and PhD applications require after your first stage or the written stage is after you make it through the written stage, you sit through an interview, and this session is going to talk to you all about that interview. We have with us 3 wonderful panelists. We have with us Dr. Beenish Iqbal, and you know her from our previous sessions as well. She's been very kindly taking time out for this workshop series, who's doing an MSc in clinical trials from University of Oxford and simultaneously a PhD in respiratory medicine from King's College London, which is absolutely amazing. I don't know how you're doing both of them together, Beenish. We have with us Ali, who's doing a PhD in history from University of Cambridge, and we have with us Dr. Naila Sahar, who's doing a PhD who's done a PhD in English from State University of New York, and is currently an assistant professor of English at American University in Dubai. Thank you to all 3 of you for joining us today and for taking the time out for speaking to our to the audience about interviews. And Beenish, I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Thank you very much, Ms. Buff, for the kind intro. And thank you everybody for joining. This one is basically going to be just talking through the slides, but also a business stop tour of what actually interview preparation is all about. So I just want to just start off by saying that interviews basically you just trying to sell yourself as a person in front of the whole panel or whoever is taking your interview, just getting the most out of that 15-20 minutes or half an hour that is assigned for your interview. And that is just putting everything together in a format that you would like someone else to present it to you. So it's just your chance to present in a way that would just very succinctly describes who you are, why you want to do it, and just your enthusiasm should just shine through. But there, of course, there is some pattern to this as well, and that we will guide you through out this workshop, how to prepare for it according to the type of questions you get. Not all programs ask for an interview, and there are some specific programs that would ask for an interview, which of course means that they're a bit more selective, a bit more competitive, or the nature of the program. For example, some master's program, also the PhD programs will ask for an interview because you are going to do something that is very specific, and they really want to make sure that you're the right fit for that. Of course, the interviews sometimes also when there are more applicants than the slots that they have in the university program, they also opt for interviews so that you really pin it down to the candidates that are the best fit for that program. So this gives a chance to the university as well to identify who are the right people, and also give you a chance to come out as a person who is enthusiastic, right fit, has the right academic interest, as well as future goals. So it's not just about that particular program, it's what you take out of it and what are your goals and do they align with that program. Yeah, next slide, please. So this is a very simple breakdown what type of interviews you would be encountering. So there are formal interviews, and I would, which is basically that you would be told that there would be one or two people or many people taking your interview at a particular time, and how long the duration would be. So usually the universities do tell who is going to interview you in advance so that it doesn't come as a surprise, and you can actually do research who those people are, and you can what they really are trying to ask you. Usually there is some set question that is like describe yourself in the first 1 or 2 minutes, who you are, and then what are your achievements, what are your plans, and then they can ask you questions about knowledge in the field. I would probably say the formal interviews and the panel interviews are not very different in a way. The formal interviews can also have a panel of 2 or 3 people, but sometimes some panel interviews, like for example, for particular big scholarship like Rhodes Scholarship and others, they can be a very big panel of many people, sometimes up to 10 people who are interviewing you. And that would mean that there were people who have particular roles. They will introduce you at the beginning that I am the other faculty members, or the admission officers people, or particular professionals or experts in the field who just come in. For example, I'm from medical sciences, so when I go into interview, there's also a patient representative because my studies are very clinical. So these type of panels that you would be already aware of, or they would introduce you. So they have to prepare questions accordingly because everybody would be given a particular question to ask. Then there is a category called informal interviews, where you would be asked to interview by a faculty member, an alumni. Is basically to gauge your interest and identify that you align with the program and the aspiration. Next slide. Okay, so this is a snapshot from from Berkeley's graduate admission page, and this you can see that they have given information about the interview that they would be the applicants would be going on for an interview. What are the dates? And I would really want you to focus on the bottom of the page is the interview question areas. So it's so that it doesn't come as a surprise. They have jotted down as the 4 areas where they will be asking you questions. So you have to prepare yourself accordingly. And I would really reiterate this point that practicing, probably in front of other people, probably in front of a mirror, just by yourself, and sometimes recording your own voice really helps to make you aware how many times we say and and then we are not sounding very confident. So it really helps you to prepare. And so the question they're asking you to prepare for is, how would you prepare for studying at the Berkeley for that particular program? And then what are your professional career goals? So you really have to, that would be beginning with what you have done so far and how does it align with your future goals, and why are you choosing this particular university, and what are you going to bring to it. So that's something that we rarely think about. We only think that we are going there as just a passive a student who is just going to get everything out of the university where the program is being teaching you. But actually, good universities also want to see that who they are investing their time in, and is that person is going to bring something additional to the university as well. So that is something that high school highly sought after universities also look at, that what are they going to get. So it's a two-way process, not a one-way process. Next slide. Okay, so that's another a sample from another university University of Paris, and you can see again this is for legal studies, and they're saying that the application forms would be reviewed by a committee, and then they will then some cases students may be invited to an interview, and that means that if the program has enough spaces with regards to the enough and the applicants are just right for that, it's not mandatory that every student would undergo a interview, but then in some cases they may be invited to an interview. So it all would be very, very clear on the university website. And I would strongly suggest that whichever program you're applying to, read and reread their site many times so that you familiarize yourself with the program so that you don't have any surprises. I'm now going to hand over to Naila, who will talk you through for the further slides. Naila, can you take over?
Hi. Yeah, I was thinking I was doing slide 12 till 18, but I'm fine with doing with this one, these ones as well. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll read the slides, and according to that, I will keep on adding stuff that I can. I hope that will be fine. Yeah, Misbah?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Sorry, I was asking Beenish, I'm sorry. So academic subject-specific questions, interviews often probe your knowledge of key concepts and theories in your chosen field. Be prepared to discuss core subjects from your previous studies, academic projects, research work you have undertaken, current trends, important developments in your field. Focus on demonstrating in-depth understanding and how your academic background makes you a strong fit for the program. Critical thinking and problem solving. So maybe I should share my experience of my interview. I applied for a Fulbright, and the way I prepared for my interview for the Fulbright PhD scholarship was I wrote down the questions that I had jotted down after talking to people in the same field who had already gotten the scholarship, and the way I did it was, after writing the questions, I wrote the answers as well. And I kept on repeating them to myself over and over again, to the extent that I had already kind of learned them by heart. And however, one has to be very careful that when you are preparing for your interview, not only that you know the things, you have a good grasp over the questions that might come, but also it doesn't seem like you have learned them by heart when you are right there in the interview. For that, I would suggest you, once you have written the answers, you know that this is what would be a good answer to the questions, the prospective questions that might come. You talk to yourself in the mirror, just like Beenish said. So this is all the preparation that you can do for your interview, knowing everything, having the background knowledge, and writing it all, jotting it down, critical thinking, problem solving. So my PhD is in English and gender studies. So since it wasn't a scientific subject, so we didn't have, as such, very particularly technical questions that I anticipated to be asked. However, I knew that what I want to go for a PhD in, I have to convince the committee that I know why it's important for me and what is happening in the field at the moment, and how is it that I can add up. This is a very, very important thing to remember. Even in job interviews or for the graduate scholarship interviews, for both of them, you should know how and what are you adding up. There is so much work being done about every field, in every genre. How is it that your research will add up to the field? This is something important that you need to remember. You may face case studies or hypothetical scenarios related to your field. Questions require you to apply theoretical knowledge to practical situations, showing your ability to think critically, approach problems methodically, and communicate your reasoning clearly. Maybe we can go to the next slide now. How technical are these interviews? Academic fit and long-term goals. Universities want to see your academic goals fit their program. So this is where your background knowledge will come. When you're applying, do not apply blindly. Go to the websites, read what is happening in the department, who is the faculty, what are their expertise, what work they have produced by now, or what are their publications. And sometimes when you are interviewing, it's a great idea to even refer to the professors and their work. That would be a very impressive way to communicate to the committee that you are actually very much invested in your in this field that you are choosing, and you know what you are doing. Be ready to answer how this master's degree will enhance your knowledge and skills in your chosen field, what courses, research opportunities, or faculty members align with your academic and professional aspirations. You should demonstrate that you have thought about your long-term goals and how the program will help you to achieve them. So think about not only about today, that also think about once you are being taken, what next? Although it's very difficult to kind of prophesize that this is where I will be ending up, or this research, for instance, I will be doing, because sometimes during the passage of research, you change maybe your topic, the specific branch of the field. However, it's always good to be very confident in front of your committee about what your goals are, what specifically you want to do, what specifically you want to focus on. Later on, when you start taking your courses, for instance, since I did my PhD in US, you have to go through a very rigorous 2-year courses or coursework as well. So during that semester taking, I felt like after taking the courses, the kind of courses that I took, it shaped my research objectives as well, which were considerably different from what I had aimed to do. So that can also happen. However, when you are preparing for the interview in front of the committee, it's very important that you seem like a confident person who knows what they're going to do. You cannot be, you can't say that I will see or I will think about it. But that would be a very bad idea. Instead of that, have a clear goal in front of you and tell them, this is what I'm invested in. And I feel like this field is still, it's not saturated enough. And there is still some aporias that I can fill. So for that, a background knowledge will be very, very important. What courses, research opportunities, or faculty members align with your academic and professional aspirations? You should demonstrate that you have thought about your long-term goals. So like I said before, even after your PhD or master's degree, what are you thinking to do? Sometimes you might be asked the questions, which will have to, you will be answering for, okay, after doing this, this is what I feel I would be doing, or I will be going in this field and making this kind of difference. It's a great idea to kind of predict that this is what I know the path I'm using. Know your application inside out, also a very good idea. Before preparing for the interview, go through your application all over again. Sometimes during the interview, you forget, okay, this is what I had written. So again, go back to your application, read it again. Read, maybe, for instance, be ready to discuss any aspect of your statement of purpose, research proposal, your resume, CV, research interests. So because that is the application that the whole committee will have in front of themselves. So it's a great idea to go back to your application, revisit what you had written, so that there are not potential discrepancies between what you're going to say and what's been written in your application, because that will show that you have probably not worked enough before coming to the interview committee. So interview is the final step where you will be given, the chance, whether you are going to join a certain program or not. That is the moment where you will set a certain impression on the committee. So be ready to explain any parts of the application that they haven't, clearly gotten, or maybe they need a clarity on. So go back to your application, read it all over again, see where are any aporias or the gaps that you can fill and talk about. Again, talk to yourself or anyone else and fill the gaps. Try to fill the gaps and try to ask the questions to yourself as well. For instance, how would you address to a candidate if you were the interviewer? Understand the program structure, including key source courses, faculty, research opportunities. Be aware of university's values and culture. Align your answers to show how you'll fit in. Familiarize yourself with key faculty members. Again, like said before, great idea not to only have a complete grasp of your application, but also a good grasp of, what faculty do you really want to work with. I felt that in this, it's not been written, but for a Fulbright, if you're applying for a Fulbright, we also fill a statement of, other than statement of purpose, we have a personal statement to write as well. And I remember personal statement is it's something different from the statement of purpose or the or research interests. In a personal statement, you are kind of writing your story as well, your story of life in a very brief manner, which shows how motivated you have been right from the beginning for a certain kind of field of study, and how your life events made you interested in a certain kind of subject. What happened that pushed you into a certain field, or you were interested in a certain field. So if you're asked to write a personal statement in your application, write that in a very, it should have an intimate yet very professional tone as well. So if there is that statement to be written, read that and go back and read that story as well very carefully. You would be advised to write things very honestly, so that if you're asked a question right away in front of the interview committee, there are not any glitches to be made. There is not anything that is different in your application, what you are saying. So be very, careful about any discrepancies that might appear. Prepare for common questions. Again, these are the general questions that might come. Motivational questions, for instance, why do you want to pursue a master's or PhD degree? This seems like a very, very usual, very banal, very, not important question maybe, or it might appear to be a very simple question. However, it's not. When you have to justify why you're going for a PhD degree or master's degree, it's a very tricky question. And this may lead to other questions as well, which are not written here. Why this subject? Why this field? But there's so much that is happening about it already. How is it that you are going to make a difference? So be ready for any questions that branch out from this first question as well. Then a behavioral question, for instance, tell me about a time you overcame a challenge. So uh, anticipate this question. Maybe jot down a few events of your life where you had to overcome a challenge. Also be considerate of the timing. I hope that when you are thinking about a certain story that you would want to tell to the committee, you're not making it way too long that it becomes a very boring instance. Make it crisp, short, and something with a lesson, something that tells you, the committee, about your personality, about your integrity, about your about your logical side, or maybe about your integrity as a person, as a person of strength. So think about few events or just one event which you would like to focus on, which not only shows that as a person you are capable of undertaking a challenge, which is the research, upcoming research, but also you have the ability to survive in an environment where you haven't survived, where you haven't lived before. You are able to like do it all on your own. Academic questions, what is your perspective on this specific topic? So for instance, if you're a literature person or you're a, I'm telling, for instance, my perspective, if you're researching on literature, what kind of literature would you like to research? For instance, I said I am really interested in migration diaspora literature. Now, I should anticipate what questions might be asked of me regarding the migration and diaspora literature. What is diaspora? How much work have you already read about diaspora and migration literature? Why do you think in this era where you're living right now, why is this kind of study important? What is it that your research will particularly do that will have a larger impact, or that will, change something that is already in the society? Do you intend to bring a change, or do you want to bring forth a few things that haven't been considered by the policymakers, maybe? If you're reading literature, why literature? Since I think the most challenging thing at the moment is to get a PhD or a graduate degree in humanities and social sciences. Many social sciences and humanities departments are already under a lot of challenge. There in US, in West, they are closing the humanities and social sciences departments. So if you're applying for humanities or a social sciences department, you have to be extremely careful regarding, formulating your application, because you will be asked over and over again, how are you going to make an impact? So you have to think about liberal arts and humanities in the context of why, as a human race, we need to read the things that are seen as redundant. So be ready for any questions that might branch out of these questions. And you have to keep on thinking about, okay, if someone has asked me this might be their next question. So pretend as if you are your own interviewer as well. And this will help you in preparing the further nuances which might be brought forth during your interview. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Beenish and Naila. It was like wonderful presentation. Even I learned a lot. And I don't think I'm gonna say anything that hasn't been said before. So yeah, so common questions that has been asked, as Naila said, these are really, really important questions, because these are the questions which in a way sort of decide what person is going to get the funding, for example, or who is the right person for the job, because as Beenish also said, that this is a two-way process, especially top universities and program across the globe. They are not just looking for good candidates who could do good research, but they are also looking for candidates who can in a way contribute to the academic life of the department as well. So first type of question, a group of questions that are often asked in an interview are motivation-based questions. Why are you applying for this program, for example? And these questions can come across as questions which can be answered very generally, but these are the questions which should be answered very specifically. For example, why are you applying for the program? You need to research well to answer these questions. For example, to answer this question, you'll need to name names of the faculty members who you want to work with, what resources, especially if you're applying for STEM, what resources are available in that department that can help you with your research. If you are applying for social sciences and humanities, what resources, libraries, collections, archives are available in those departments. I think we move to the next slide. What's that? Misbah, I think we need to go back 2 slides. Yeah. Yeah, perfect. Previous slide. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, sorry.
No worries. So yeah, so you need to be very, very specific in your response. What are your career goals and how does this degree help you achieve them? Again, these are also very, you need to answer this question as well, like very specifically what you want to do in 5 years time or 10 years time. Obviously there's no way of telling it now or answering it now, but you still should try to do your best. You need to have, sometimes you have an idea of, like, for example, another project that you have in your mind that you want to do after your PhD or after your, for example, after your master's. So you can talk about that a bit in detail. Why this university and not others? Similarly, what that university has to offer to you. It is very similar to why are you applying for this program, as Naila said, that to anticipate follow-up questions on that. Academic and research questions. Tell us about your undergraduate research or project work. This is this is in a way this is where the interview panel is trying to not just understand your research, but also they are trying to evaluate how well you know the work that you have already done, to what extent you have this ability to engage with the broader literature in your field, other projects that has been done related to your project, to what extent, for example, you can identify a gap in the scholarship or in research, and what can you do to kind of then address that gap. Which areas of research are you interested in exploring further? I think this, like, in a way, very similar to what are your research goals. In a way, you can like talk about other areas of research that you are interested in exploring. How does your academic background prepare you for this program? And this is kind of like, again, I think very similar to the previous questions. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. Personal and soft skills questions. Tell me about a time you had to collaborate with a diverse group. How do you handle feedback or criticism? What are your strengths and weaknesses? And these are kind of like questions that often are asked when you have to work in a very project setting or a team setting, because they are trying to evaluate how well do you perform in a group setting or in a team. But also when you are in a department, when you are doing any of your graduate course, or you are working in a department, it is a group effort. You have to collaborate with a lot of people, to even if it's like an sort of like an individual project, you have to talk to a couple of people. You have to figure out a lot of challenges that you face in your project. So this is kind of like evaluate how well you do in a group setting. Program specific questions: which faculty members research align with your interest? what do you hope to contribute to our university community, and how will you handle the academic rigor of the program? And I think like Beenish and Naila have talked about all these questions in detail already. Strategizing for interview: be concise and clear. Practice articulating your thoughts clearly and succinctly. Avoid rambling. Answer each question directly and stay focused on the key point. Be very clear, especially if you're based in Pakistan and you are interviewing for online, then you need to, in a way, make sure that you speak in a way which can be communicate and speak very clearly, so you can so the panel doesn't have any issue understanding what you are trying to say. Use a STAR technique for behavioral questions: situation, task, action, result. Situation: briefly describe the context. I think especially in social sciences, humanities, this is really important, because if you are planning to work on something related to South Asia, something related to Pakistan, chances are that there is not going to be anyone on the interview panel who works on South Asia and who know a lot about South Asia. So I think in this context, especially you need to you need to kind of like describe the context to the interview panel, that this is the situation that I am coming from, or this is the situation I'm in which I'm contextualizing my research. This is why this is important. These are the problems that we are currently facing, and this is how my research will try to address those problems. Task: explain what the task or challenge was. What have you done about that problem? What are you thinking of doing about that problem? Action: discuss what you did to address the task, what you already did or you plan to do. And result: highlight the positive outcome of your actions. And if you have, for example, done any project, worked with an NGO in like social sciences or humanities, or in STEM, if you have worked in a lab, what was the result? Showcase your fit. Demonstrate how your academic background, research interest, career goals align with the program. I really like what Beenish said in the beginning of this presentation, that you have to, I think, sell yourself to the interview panel. And this is absolutely true, because there's like these programs are often very competitive. And if you have been shortlisted for an interview, it means that you have performed well in the written stage. So you have crossed the first barrier, and now you have to kind of like, in a way, prove that why you deserve this a place on the program, why you are the right person for this job. Show enthusiasm for the university culture, resources, and faculty. One thing I would really like to emphasize here is, it's not mentioned here, but please do prepare for the interviews, but don't over prepare. Sometimes what will happen is that we have these questions in our mind, and we have prepared like these answers very sort of like, we have these answers in our mind already prepared. But when a question comes in an interview, so we just start answering those questions by heart, of like, without even kind of like trying to understand it. It might be a different question. Or when you over prepare, sometimes what happens is that you are not very open to other questions that might come your way. Or you kind of like, sometimes it happens with me sometimes, that when I over prepare, I kind of like lose the ability to think out of the box. So do prepare well, but do not over prepare. Any questions? I think this is the last slide, so if you have any questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Beenish, Naila, and Ali. That was really comprehensive and I'm sure very helpful. So we now are open to questions. If you have any question, you can raise your hand and ask directly to the speakers, or you can put your questions in chat, or send it as a DM to either me or any one of the panelists. on the call here. Okay, I see a question here and in my DMs as well. Okay, this isn't directly related to the interviews, but they're asking, I would like to know how we can determine which university is the best fit for us as I explore various university websites. They all seem very competitive and beyond our reach. I would appreciate your thoughts and comments on this matter. Yeah, I know it's not about interviews, so whoever wants to take it.
I can take it if that's okay. I can give it a start. I think it's a very relevant question, and because it is the problem I faced because when in Pakistan you're studying, you only have a couple of universities on your fingertips that you want to apply to because they are good ones and people have gone there before and you kind of know, okay, these are the 2, 3 ones. I have never actually read what the university website says. What are they going to teach me? It's very much a one-way ticket that I'm just going there to get a degree out. The universities abroad are very different to that. I think if it depends on the program you're applying for. If you're applying for, let's start from the PhD down. If you're applying for a PhD program, it's a very, very different application. You have to really look into the faculty, the supervisors who would be, and what are their areas of interest, because your research would very much be aligned with the whole theme of the department and what they actually do. It's a very self-driven thing. So you have to really do it yourself with some support of your supervisors who are in the field where you want to research. So I would say that would make probably your job slightly easier in that way, but equally difficult if you're in a very niche field to find the right fit. But if you're doing like a master's, which are usually taught programs, then you need to see that what your career goal is and how best that career goal will align with a particular program. So, for example, if you want to use that master's as a bridge to do a PhD in a particular field, then you look at what that master will prepare you for with the skill set that you require for that particular PhD. And then most of the good universities, master's program in that particular field, will kind of prepare you for the generic skill set that you require. So I don't think that you really need to be extremely picky in that way, that you have to can only apply 1 or 2 places. The thing is, they are very competitive places. So I would say to apply to as many as possible, and then filter it out that which way one you get shortlisted for, and then you have to apply. So I hope that helps to answer your question.
Thank you, Beenish. There's a few more questions. I'm just going to read the second one out. Please elaborate and I think give one example for questions that relate to, strengths and weaknesses. And I think this is really common and I think one really struggles to think of what do you say in an interview when someone asks, like, what is your weakness or what is your strength? So if you have any tips on how people can respond to that question.
I would like to respond to the first question again, if I can.
Of course, yeah.
For again, going back to the scholarship that I got, actually, you are given choices. In Fulbright scholarships application, you're given 4 choices to choose your universities. And somehow, my research wasn't very good. And this is what I would like to say to the people who would like to apply for the Fulbright. When you're making choices between those 4 universities that Fulbright might send you to, have a good knowledge of them, of the programs as well. However, in the end, it's Fulbright's choice where they would send you. Sometimes they would send you to an entirely different university than the ones that you have written in the 4 universities' choices. So being very honest, it all depends on the scholarship as well for which you're applying. For Fulbright, they completely go according to their funding. In Pakistan, what they used to do was their funding used to be a collaboration between HEC and Fulbright for the PhD especially. So according to that funding amount, they used to consider, okay, what is a good match for them as well financially, plus the student who's applying. So the whole thing is actually not dependent on you, if you think about it, especially for the Fulbright scholarship. I don't know about Commonwealth and other scholarships, but yeah, this is how it goes for Fulbright. So yes, you can try your best. There were a few people who were able to negotiate their universities as well, for Fulbright. And however, those people were the ones who were going for the 2-year masters. For a PhD, it's a lot of money they are spending on you. It's a lot of time they are giving you. It's a huge funding. So they also consider in it which university is ready to give you a certain amount of leverage regarding the financial benefits. So yes, it is dependent on what you want, but it is also dependent on what kind of what funding the universities that you are applying to would also offer. For instance, your dream school is U Chicago, and but any other university is giving you a 50% financial aid, and they think that, okay, this way their burden is decreasing because this university is already giving you this much funding. So they would send you to the university which is giving you more funding. So be ready for that as well. Yes, you can negotiate, but most of the time, since a PhD program is a longer and it asks for a lot of money, they will also go for the things that are feasible financially for Fulbright and HEC as well. I can go to the second question maybe as well. Elaborate one example. What are your weaknesses and strengths? I guess you're asking for an answer as an example. So for instance, I don't know, can someone else start, and maybe it will trigger my imagination as well, and I'll come back to second one.
Beenish.
I can probably say, because I had this dilemma in one of my interviews, because I applied for a master's in the University of Oxford, and I am already doing a PhD, and they asked me this question, that how are you going to manage 2 postgrad degrees at the same time? And what do you think you have as a strength that makes you think it is possible? And I did have of course, I had to mention as my strength that I am very good at my time management, and I have done previous 2 qualifications at the same time, and while working as a full-time doctor in respiratory medicine. So these kind of things, but then you have to really match it with an example a concrete example from your life that you have already done, not some aspiration that you think that, oh yes, that is it. But usually it is a strength is for postgrad programs is about time management, motivation, keeping the how would you make it to the other end? Because it's mostly in the middle of the program that you have a lull and you feel like you're doubting yourself. Why am I in this program? Why I'm doing this? And that's what they want you to do. What keeps you motivated and what is your strength in that way? With regards to weakness, I would probably say this weakness is a very tricky question. It's a slippery slope. The way they're asking you is not to just start telling I'm very lazy and I'm like that. The weakness is basically something that is also your strength, but something that you can use as your strength. For example, you say, oh, I sometimes struggle with work-life balance. Like that you can mention as a weakness, but which is actually considered strength by most people, that you're workaholic. So you just don't, so you try to mention your weakness as something that you can say, oh, I really can work on it. I struggle with work-life balance. I'm sometimes work too hard, but I feel like really need to relax a bit as well and give myself time. So weakness of that sort that they're looking for.
I would say it's an absolutely very, very good suggestion that Beenish gave. Absolutely. Do not think they're asking you in the garb of asking you or evaluating your personality. They want you to kind of garb your weakness in a strength. So, weakness, don't tell them your weaknesses. Please don't. They would, capitalize on that, and that will affect your application. This is a very tricky question, as Beenish said, because they're not actually asking for your weakness. They're actually asking for another strength that you might find as a weakness. So use this question for your advantage. Do not say, oh, my weakness is I can't wake up early in the mornings, which actually is my weakness. But probably if I would be applying for a PhD, I wouldn't say that. Maybe I would say that, yeah, I do sleep late at nights. I keep on working, and that kind of affects my ability, in the mornings, but I'm working on that. But I'm actually not a morning person, and sometimes I feel like, this works in my disadvantage, but I'm constantly working on that. And it will show them that, yes, you are a workaholic, which might seem as your strength. So you have to like very, very intelligently answer. Don't ever tell them your weaknesses, please.
Ali, do you want to add anything?
No, I just want to say this, but while doing it, just don't be too obvious, because I know some people just say, "Oh, my weakness is that I'm a perfectionist." You, as Naila said, that you have to really intelligently answer it. I mean, you have to put it, with that that kind of like make them think that you think of this as a weakness, just to like tell them of another of your good quality in that answer. Some people do that, and it's like it doesn't come across very nicely. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, all of you. Um, Another question is, what is the major problem to face during interview regarding your achievements or the contribution to a master's program? Hmm. I think more generally, like, um, I'm trying to understand just what are some of the difficult questions maybe that you faced or one can face, especially when discussing the things that you've done. And also like how do you respond to a question that talks about how you will contribute to the master's program? So yeah, anyone.
The contribution, if I can start with answering this, I think the question is regarding, okay, if you're asked what is your contribution already to the field of research that you're choosing, if you have published something, mention that. If you have worked with your professor regarding a project, maybe mention that. If you have to tell your contribution generally in the society, if you have been an attorney somewhere, mention that, So before applying for a PhD, especially, they would like to see what you have already done. For instance, when I applied for my PhD, I was already a assistant professor. So I was already into research. I had done a few things. And this is what I would suggest as well. There is a recent trend to right away go for your PhD right after your master's, although it's a good idea these days. But also think about, for the PhD committee, they would ask you what are your contributions already. So some people do struggle with that. They don't have a publication. Make sure you have at least, maybe one publication before that, maybe a good internship on your credit, maybe a good project that you contributed on with your professor. These will be the contributions that are like, quantifiable. They can be counted. So I feel like this is a challenge for people who they don't have anything to their credit, or maybe they have, but they don't know how to mention that. But before applying for the scholarship, maybe you should have a few things. Also, if people are going for their PhD right after their master's, it's pretty good. But between that break between bachelor's and master's, maybe you would like to do something. So keep it in mind before applying. Have something to your credit to boast about. Yes, this is what I did, and that was, it was a big project. I was part of it. I learned these skills from that, and this kind of fueled my passion as well. So be ready for this kind of challenge to answer that, yes, I already have a contribution and I'm ready to contribute more. So I think this is how you can fashion the answer.
Beenish.
I think just one I want to add to it as well, that I was asked this question in my interview, and that what would you bring to the department, or how would you contribute? I mean, if it's a taught program, you cannot really add too much to the department. It's already, but a big way of contributing would be where you would end up, because you would always be an alumni of that university or program, And I did say that I want to work with WHO for the lower and middle income countries to improve the respiratory health, because it's a big problem and all that. And that you feel like, okay, so they're investing in somebody who has a bigger goal to go global. And that is also an investment in them. And that's also you're bringing to it, because you are kind of their um, representative in the world, that you are here in this platform because you studied from that place and they give you the skill set. So that is another way. If you cannot think of something particular that you can change, or the other, and also if your program has a dissertation or a thesis, then you can also bank a lot on it, that what I'm going to do is going to contribute in a bigger sense in that particular area. So that is something that you can also use. But if there's no dissertation, then you think of your career goal and how would that contribute to the uplifting the department that you are studying from.
Okay, thank you. I am mindful of time, and we're already done with 1 hour. So I'll just take the last two questions in chat. If anyone has any question, now would be a good time to put it in chat or raise your hand. Otherwise, these are the only questions I'll be taking, and then I'll end the session. There's a question about Fulbright. So I'm applying for the Fulbright PhD program and would like to ask whether the selection of my research topic impacts the decision-making process. I applied for the program last year, and I believe my choice of topic may have influenced the outcome of my application. Naila, if you want to take that.
Yeah, I'm reading the question again. Okay. Would you like to, whoever is asking, I wish you had elaborated what was your topic, and I might be able to discuss a little bit in the perspective of your specific research area that you had chosen. But yes, it does impact. Yes, very much. If you are, especially if you're applying for a Fulbright, every time they have 2 to 3 subjects or the areas that they're focusing on. For instance, the year I applied, it was 2013, and I applied the areas that they were focusing on during that time period was water and agriculture or something like that, and sustainability maybe. And I was a literature major focusing on gender. So being very honest, I did not know if I would be chosen or not, because I was not, my area wasn't the one that was specifically sought after during that time. However, it was my way of convincing them that convinced them that, yes, I'm worth funding, right? So you are the one who is going to convince them that, yes, I am worth spending money on, because I'm going to make some substantial difference in how the specific research area is being researched right now. For instance, my research area at that time that I talked about was I was talking about diaspora literature and migration literature. And during that time, and even now, the refugee literature is an important way to navigate the studies around the migration and refugee crisis. So, I had to think about, plus my interest. Yes, I already had interest in this topic. My MPhil dissertation thesis was something regarding diaspora studies and South Asian studies regarding the migration studies, and 9/11 was somewhat also the part of the study. So yes, I was tapping into their sensibilities, and you have to very intelligently do that. You have to see what is the demand in the market right now, intersect that with your own interest. So yes, if you are able to tell them that, yes, because they are, again, I'm telling you, they are spending huge amounts of funding. Fulbright is not only spending on your degree, they're giving you a huge stipend as well. They don't want you to work. You are not working during your degree, during your PhD. You are one of the very, very prestigious people who are sitting at home or in the libraries, just studying, just focusing on their degree. You're not teaching. So you're not working, you're not allowed to work. So they are giving you a substantial amount of money to cover for everything. So you have to think very intelligently how to kind of mold your research subject into something which is not only the demand of the times, but it is also intersecting with your interest in previous research studies. It has to cover all of these 3, 4 areas. Only and only, and I'm telling you again, not only written out of, for example, 100 people applied. Out of them, they chose 50 for the interviews. Out of those 50, they'll choose just 20, you know. And I'm giving you very short numbers. The times when I applied, maybe there were 700 candidates. Out of them, they chose 150 for interviews, and only 20 went for PhD. So you are one of the very, very small percentage of people who are going. For you, the most important thing is convincing them I am worth spending money on. So yes, your area has to be something that is a buzzword. You know, these days, again, the buzzword is sustainability. COP28, blah, blah, blah. Everything is happening. Even humanities people are fashioning their research subjects around sustainability. So, yes, you have to think these days, what is the buzzword? And sustainability can be a word or a buzzword that can be included in any kind of research right now. Sciences, humanities, social sciences, you can come up with a subject that has this word. So yes, market yourself, sell yourself, as already has been said by my colleagues here. You have to be very, very specific regarding marketing yourself. You're selling yourself. You're a product right now who is trying to, be sold. So how are you going to be sold, make yourself so attractive that they think many times before rejecting you? So yes, you market yourself very intelligently. It will affect their decision if your research topic selection is intelligently done according to the times in which you are applying. What is it that is needed? What is happening around the world right now, for instance? If I was applying right now, my focus would be maybe um, literature written about apocalypse, maybe, or maybe the again, the refugee crisis has become one of the important things. Again, extremism, the far right has become an important thing. For humanities, these would be the subjects I would ask you to capitalize on. If you're a sciences student, you know where the research is going right now. So tap into their sensibilities, because you're telling them, I am one of the very important people who can do something. So don't reject me. So yes, market yourself intelligently. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Naila. Final question. So I am shortlisted for a DART scholarship interview in Germany. I'll be conducted tomorrow. I have applied for a PhD, for a PhD chemistry program. Please guide me what possible questions apart from my proposed work I should expect, and if some tricks related to this, please share.
I can probably take it from the sciences perspective. I think if you are aware of the panel who is going to interview you, try to read if they have published any new work in your area. And also what recent publication in a reputable chemistry journal has been published in the last month or so. And specifically, I would say the Nobel Prize in Chemistry was announced last month. Read about it, and try to push it in your interview, because that shows that you are up to date with what is happening in the world, not just about your program, but these things really count. That what, as Naila mentioned, sustainability is the thing. I pitched on that in my medical sciences interview. So all of these things matter, because they say that you are the person who they're investing now, and in the next few years, you're going to be one of the world leaders or leaders in the field. So I would certainly say, as a tip, if you know already about the Nobel Prize in Chemistry I was given, and if you have any critique or criticism, or also about the panel.
Naila, yeah.
Yeah, so I would, Beenish gave very good insight into it. Again, I would say general questions, always keep them in mind. Because when the committee is sitting there, only one person will be subject specific. Rest are not. At least this is my experience. Only one person, even in my interview, not even one person was subject specific, being very honest. So subject specific is it's a chance if there is anyone who would know what you are doing. Most of the times the questions will be very general. The questions will be, okay, they want to know you. They want to know your integrity as a person. They want to know how capable you are of using the funding that they would be giving you. Funding it is something prestigious that they would give to only few people who they feel like, okay, they're worth it. So you have to, most of the times you have to, like, through the general questions that are asked about you and your research, they're trying to judge your personality. They're trying to judge who you are. So, as a person, think about, if you have to give a certain amount of money to someone, what are the things that you would see in them? Their honesty, their capability, their intellect, their intelligence, their commitment to their goal. This is what you have to keep in mind and show them that, yes, this is who I am, and yes, I deserve this certain kind of funding. So generally be ready to show them that personally I am someone you should, you should, you should trust. So, and this is one of the most tricky things to navigate as well, being very honest. Showing others that I am someone who is unique, who is different, and who deserves this more than anyone else. Out of like thousands of people, you have to, be on that niche. So you're already being chosen. That should go in your favor. That should give you a certain amount of confidence. Out of a lot of people, you're already in the pool of the people who are being asked questions now because they trust that you are one of those. So use that to your advantage, use that for your confidence, and then mold the answers to your advantage, showing them your capabilities. It's a mixture of past, present, and future that you will be giving them, or showing them a picture of, this is what I've been, this is what I want to be, and this is what I will be. So in that perspective, maybe carve out your answers and write them down, practice a lot. Good luck.
I just want to add to it. There was one question asked recently that didn't throw me off because I prepared for it, but was unusual. That the panel asked, if we bump into you in our corridor in the university, what type of person we would think you are. And it's basically for very small departments where you are going to bump into each other, and how are you going to settle in and how are you going to contribute. So then these are like, that was a question that luckily I have read something about it, so I just managed to answer it. But I haven't really read it anywhere in the interview panel questions that they would ask you. And also sometimes the panel asks you, do you have any question from us? That is again a trick question. That doesn't mean that you start asking, bringing out your grievances or the application process or this and that. Why was it this? The question, it is basically not to throw you off, that you suddenly feel, oh, now I have to ask them a question. You don't need to, if there's no burning question. And I would probably say, try not to, because you don't want to pester them with your questions. But this is just something people just become very scared that, oh, now I definitely have to ask something, and they just ramble about things. So if they ask you, do you have any question, and say, no, I think everything was very clear and I love the process, so thank you very much, something like that. Say like that.
I would add to it by saying that sometimes when they ask you, okay, do you have a question? If there is an intelligent question, do ask that. That will put a very good impact on them, that, oh, you are critically actually analyzing the whole situation. It's a good question. But since during the interview times, most of the times we are so nervous, it's so hard to handle yourself. Preparation is the key for everything. Prepare as many times as you can. Stand in front of the mirror, and you will see the impact it makes. When you are saying things, you will be looking at yourself saying all of those things. So sometimes if they are asking you, do you have a question? Maybe think of a great question, of an intelligent question that can help you to be seen by them in a certain light, So there's a lot of help on internet as well regarding, okay, what if someone asks you, is there a question? And I remember even job interviews are like that. If somebody's asking you, do you have a question? Maybe don't let it go. Maybe do ask some intelligent thing. So it would be a nice idea to kind of contribute into showing them that, yeah, I'm a thinking human being. I also have concerns. It's not like, yes, I am dying for this funding, I'm dying for this scholarship, but I have my few concerns, and I'm critically analyzing the situation as well. So it will be a good idea to maybe have a good question.
Great. Beenish, there's one question for you in chat, so maybe we take that as the final question and end. So they're asking, my topic is related to power politics, and I find that there isn't much to demonstrate as my contribution upon completing the degree. Can I emphasize the research as a way to add knowledge to academia?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a lot happening in power politics all across the globe at the moment. So I think this is a very, very hot topic. And in what's Trump 2.0 is going to be is a power politics. I think it's a way how you handle this. And I would handle it in a way like everybody who is researching is going to contribute to academia. That's not something that only you are going to bring out. I would handle in a way that when in situations like these, critical voices become even more important than the person who is brandishing this power politics. So you can say that I want to be the sane voice in this noise, what is happening in the world, because a lot of people will be allying with people who are showing this power politics, and you need counter voices, you need critical voices. And my research is going to prepare me to see things in a bit more clearer fashion and with clarity so that I can say the truth in this time when there is so much noise in the world. So I think just like spin the question in that way that yes, you would be contributing academia, but you would become that group of people who would be seeing things clearly, which is definitely and desperately needed in the world at this time. So maybe something like this. Probably Naila and Ali can add more to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, yes, I mean, like, your research work can be one of the ways to add up, um, or to demonstrate as your contribution. But think about bigger goals as well. If it is a question about future, maybe think of bigger goals. If it is about past, yes, your research will be one of the contributions that you can show. But if it's about future, maybe think about, I'm thinking about applying in this specific area for as a policymaker, for instance, and this is how I'm thinking of adding up to that perspective. So there can be more than one answer to this, I feel. Other than research, you can contribute in many other ways as well after completing the degree, especially.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think with that, we will end the session 20 minutes late, but thank you for staying on. Thank you so much, Ali, Naila, and Beenish for joining us, for, going through the presentation so comprehensively, sharing your own personal experiences and being so patient with the questions. Thank you everyone else who joined our session today and for being an engaging audience. I hope you found this session helpful and the workshop series more generally helpful as well. The recording of this session, along with all other workshops that we've done so far, are available on our YouTube channel. So please have a look at that. If there's anything that you missed and you want to catch up on, you can have a look at the recordings. And with that, just best of luck with your applications. And once again, thank you, Beenish and Naila and Ali.
Thank you so much. Good luck, everyone.